Good evening, everyone. And today I'll be talking about UI development in big data world using open source. I'll be telling my experience in big data world from last 11 years in big data space, how we have evolved in different frameworks, what we have used, how we created different frameworks, what we are using from open source, and how we are solving those problems. And that's it. So a little bit about myself. So I'm Paramjit Jolly, working as Director of Engineering at Guava's, a Thales company. We were acquired 2 years ago by Thales Group. I'm having 19 years of experience in UI design and development in different domains: multimedia, e-learning, pharma, fitness, big data, telecom, network security, IoT. So all these domains we have worked upon. And from last 11 years, I'm working with Guava's, mainly on big data analytics. And I'm a local leader for UX India in Delhi NCR. I'm active speaker for UX and UI conferences in India. And this is my first time in Apache conference. It's about Thales. Thales is, we are 80,000 employees across the globe. We have a presence of 68 countries, and it is 1 billion self-funded R&D center. And we have 19 billion sales in 2018. And if you talk about from the bottom of the ocean to the depth of space and cyberspace, everywhere we are. We are into digital identity and security. We are into defense and security. We are into aerospace. We are into space. We are into ground transportation system. So Thales is into all different domains. And we've been acquired 2 years ago by Thales just to look at from analytics perspective, how we can bring in the analytic ability and able to solve those problems in these different domains. So let's go over the agenda for today. What we'll be covering is, first is why UI is important in big data world. What is the significance of UI in big data world? You're already seen a lot of people were talking about how we'll use big data, how you'll process the data. So now the thing is how you want to visualize the data. How do you actually get value out of it? Next is how to target big data problems. Telling about our experience, what kind of different big data problems you have in UI user interfaces, and how do we solve them. Next is framework and tool selection criteria. So this is one of the key aspects. Every company who is moving into big data find this problem, like which tool I should select, what should be my selection criteria, what are the points I should be looking at a tool to find it. I try to jot it down my experience on that. I created a sheet also, which you can have it from my Twitter. I'll give the Twitter handle later on. And then I'll talk about evolution of big data UI at Guava's, how we have evolved in terms of UI development in Guava's from last 11 years. Then we'll talk about whether to use a custom framework or you have to use open source. Do you need to write it yourself or you can use it from open source? There are multiple options available. Now you need to see in what condition what have to be used. Then I'll give you a demo of custom framework and open source tool. The applications we have built, I'll give small 2 demos on that. Then why to contribute to open source? Why it is important to contribute to open source? Because we also started recently contributing. Earlier, we were working in closed loop, we were developing our framework internally. Now we are thinking we should go beyond it and try to expand our skills and try to make sure people use what we build also. And then design UI for future. How we should be thinking about what should be the design for the future we should be doing. What are the things we need to take care? Okay, so first part is why UI is important in big data world. As you see, human brain can process images much faster than spreadsheet and data tables. So it's easy for human brains to process images much faster. So if you talk about why UI is important in big data world, so left-hand side you see there is a huge amount of data being generated by all the IoT devices. We guys are producing all this data, and there's an intermediate between. There is a brain which is analytic and machine learning, which is consuming this whole data and try to patternize that thing. And finally, it goes to a dashboard, which is a user interface, which actually tells you the right insight about the data so that customers can take a decision depending on these insights. And so UI is the real bridge between analytics and the end user. So that really helps. So then another way to look at it, big data is a kind of mess all around it. Analytics help you to pattern the data, and UI is the one which helps you take the right decision, where, what to do, what is happening in your network, and then you can take your key decision. So UI is the real thing which actually is a face to the customer. So now let's talk about how to target big data problems. how we should be targeting big data problems. So this is the kind of experience we have, how we have dealt with different kind of problem in big data, what are the different things coming across, and then how do you target them. First is, whenever you're going for any big data application, you know to first think, what is the use case I'm trying to solve it, get the full picture clarity, what is the product is all about, you need to understand holistic view of it. Then define the personas for which your application is built for, who are the user, whether it is built for network engineer, is it built for CEOs, for the sales people. You have to define the personas, and then UX and the user journeys, how they're going to through the whole application. So first define all these things, and then also finalize which form factor you're going to use it, because most of the CXOs and CEOs, they are using tablets and mobile these days for their day-to-day work. So you have to first finalize those things. So once you have this picture clarity for your big data application, now you know this is my whole application. Now I want to identify which are the areas which really deals with big data. Because in big data application, it never happens like everything is big data. There are certain areas which deals with really big data. So you have to make sure you identify those particular areas in your application which are going to deal with big data. And the next step would be, depend on the big data visual needs, you know to choose different libraries. Depending on your visual needs, you might have to choose, like a lot of people are using D3 these days. D3 is widespread across, everywhere it is being used. And if you are going for analytics and those use cases, Plotly.js is a great library for that. E-charts, if you have happen to see, there are a lot of small stickers available for e-charts. This is also a very good library. So you can, depending on your need, you can choose these libraries like Sigma.js, Shadowscap, Linkurious. These are for the network graphs and big data. These are useful. Keylines, this is a paid library. This is a very good library we have used in one of our network security product. It offers a lot of good features. None of the library has that kind of feature because it's a paid library. But now we are trying to build something similar on top of Six Sigma.js. And there is 3JS, if you are working on 3D kind of visualization, 3JS is a very good library. So there is a huge set of library which are available in market and mostly are open source. You can look at them and try to see which fits your use case. And the next part is, once you've chosen the library, you have to make sure it is performing properly. You have to meet the SLA for the customer. When you are visualizing any big data, you have to make sure it is being rendered on a proper time, which is needed by your customer, maybe a few seconds, because he cannot wait for minutes and all. Next is caching support needed in the big data areas. So what happens is, usually big data applications, it takes time to load different views from the user. So what you need to do is, all your views which are being frequently used by customers, you have to be cached. You can use a caching mechanism. Back in 2011-12, we were using our own caching mechanism, Rubik's internal caching mechanism we're using. Nowadays, there are a lot of open source things are available, Redis, MongoDB, you can use them for caching. So caching is really important in big data application, so that user has a great experience while accessing it. Because if you have everything and you don't show in time, then it will be really difficult for user to accept that application. So your acceptance will automatically increase if it has a good SLAs. Next is long-running queries, convert them to reports. So what we have analyzed over a period, whenever in big data application, everything cannot be used in UI itself. You have to make sure there are certain areas which can be converted into reports. So it's like you can use crystal reports. We ourselves use bird reporting tool in our framework. So you need to identify which are the things which you need to really convert into that. So it'll reduce the load on your end user, and you'll notify once the reporting is ready. You can email them, so on and so forth. And then offline data factory is during the development. So it is mainly meant for the developer who are actually from UI development background. They know, like, because backend is never ready when you start developing UI. You have to wait for it. And for that period, you need to have some kind of contract ready, and you can use some kind of offline factory. How many of you here are from UI development front end? Anybody from front end here? Okay, so most of the guys are backend. So I see like most of the sessions are around backend. Now it's like turn to see the different colors of the UI. Next is identify need for real time versus auto refresh, because every application may not need near to the real time. Sometimes they, because some of the application, the data is being aggregated maybe for an hour, maybe 6 hours a day. Depending on your application, you need to find out whether auto refresh is good for me, whether should I go for the real time application. And then granularity based min-max. So this is a kind of internal term we are using. I don't know how people are interpreting it. So I have tried to pictorially show it, what that mean actually. In a lot of application, what happens is data is relevant only when it is nearly fresh. After that, you can aggregate and keep it. So like I'm showing here, last 2 months, we are keeping all the hourly points. And then for last 5 months, we are keeping daily points. And beyond that, it's just a monthly point, because data may not be that important for that particular moment. But in certain application where if you're using for security and all that, then you may wanted to see what happened exactly last year, this point of time. So in those cases, it may not be useful, but in a lot of cases, it will be useful. Then it will impact your time range selection criteria, what components you're using, that will actually going to impact it. Then is DST and time zone. Because most of the big data applications, we are using, we are storing data in UTC format. And the thing is, your customers are in different time zones. So you have to make sure you're handling DST and time zone. We were initially, when building our application, we were having these problems. And later on, we incorporated DST and the time zone. And what the library we are using is this, I forgot the name, Moment.js. Moment.js is the library which we are using for the time zone handling. I8N support. If you are going internationally for your application, you have to make sure you have I8N support in your system. And then theme support, because you are in a UI development world, you have to make sure your application should support theming, because all different users have a different kind of taste. If you look at your phones you're using, everywhere people give some kind of customization to you. So theming is also a crucial part. Whenever you go to customer, they always want to have some kind of theming concept available to them. And then this is the last but not the least is customer problem is changing, hence keep your design open for extension. So this is one of the key learning I had in my last 11 years in Goa during big data analytics. Whenever you give something to customer, he'll play with it and he'll come back with, okay, I need something different. So you have to make sure your design is open for extension, because in big data world, problems keep changing. It's not remain same. Now next is how to choose a right framework and a tool. What should be your criteria? What we have evolved over a period and tried to come out with that list. We'll go through it. First is layouting support. Whenever you're choosing a tool, you have to make sure it has the right set of layouts being there. Otherwise, you'll get stuck. I can only put my widgets here and there, and these are the only layouts. So you have to make sure what are the different applications you're building. You have some kind of fluid layout. You have a custom layouting support. So find out your framework should have supporting these things. And then is basic charting support. Any applications in analytics will need some basic charting at least. So you need to have all the bar chart, line chart, pie chart, etc. And then this goes when it is slightly advanced, you need to go for graph visualization, because in big data world, you try to see how your networks are being connected, how their nodes are connected, what are the link loads, what is the each node health. So you want to see all, and what kind of patterns they are being connected, because you'll get a lot of insights from this. So that helps to have these kind of visualizations. And then map visualization, because nowadays everything is lat long based. If you look at your data itself, Uber is lat long based. Your food when you're arriving, it's like all lat long based. So most of the data is lat long based. So you have to make sure you have a map well connected in your framework, and give you the flexibility to allow to give you a lot of layers on top of it, where you can visualize, analyze your data, and create more customizations. Time range selector. So this is one of the thing which we have used, like mostly quick links, most of people use, because in UI, what happens is whenever a user opens, you want to see some kind of view depending on the time range, like today, yesterday, it could be in minutes, like last 1 minute, depending on your use case, you might have to support. So your framework or tool should have this kind of widget which allows you to do these kind of things. In fact, that granularity based time min-max is going to come here also if you have that kind of data storage. And obviously custom is there, which is like everywhere in most of all the frameworks. Time zone and DST support, we already talked about it. Filters. So filter is one of the key aspects while analyzing a lot of tools, open source. We found out like they have problems in having the global and local filters to identify what is global filter, what is local filter. We come out with the definition. People know it. They have their own set of definitions, and then we find out in different tools what they are, what they have. Now we are working on say superset, so they have certain capabilities which is not available. We are trying to build them. So global filter, as you see in this particular application, the top bar which is it shows on net, off net, now whether it is clear or not, but it is like a global which is across the module. Those filters, if you apply, like I want to see only the on net traffic or the on net traffic, so then it will be useful. And local filter is more like on the page level. When you click on a widget, it passes. Say you click on New York here on the legend here, then it filters all the top impacted cells for the New York. And depending on that, it will show you the trend for the New York. So this is a kind of act, we call it as a local filters. So framework should support it. Next is dashboard linking. So dashboard linking is more like you are interlinking between one dashboard to another dashboard. Could be a module in your definition. So this is one of our customer use case I'm showing here. We are linking from, he's drilling down to a particular anomaly here. You click on anomaly, it goes to the next module where it shows the eNode B is open, and you're showing this is a particular cell which is anomalous in behavior. So this is really useful. And then this is one of the crucial part we realized over a period, like this has to be there when you are actually working on big data application, connecting multiple data sources, because big data application cannot be just served by one or two data sources. Depending on the use case, you might have to use Elasticsearch, you might have to use MongoDB, HDFS, Hive, HBase. So there are n number of storages available. You need to connect to them. So you have to choose a tool which can connect to all these, because initially I'll be talking later on the slides, like we chosen Kibana, and then we had some problems because it was natively connecting only to Elastic. So that's how we learned, like this is one of the crucial part while selecting your tool. Next is cancel query support. This is also a good learning we had, like in big data application, what happens is initially you convert all the big queries into reports, but still there are queries which takes longer time due to whatever problem in the backend, or maybe there is something loop is going on. Then in that case, UI should be able to have a cancel query support. He can cancel it and move it further so that his experience is not dead. So this is also important, which you need to see whether that framework supports or not. The next is query builder support, because what happens is in big data world, everything cannot be shown using UI, because you cannot provide 100 screens to the user. It may not be relevant to them. So what happens is you need to have some kind of basic, depending on the persona, there are two kind of thing we are having here. One is like basic query builder, and another is advanced. So basic is more like the guys who can do drag and drop based basic queries, all that stuff they can do because they don't know SQL very much. In that case, you need to give some kind of query builder here. And then in case of advanced user, you have to just give them a text box where they can quickly write their own queries, because DBAs and all those guys, administrators, are usually well versed with SQL queries. They wanted to write themselves rather than dragging, dropping the queries. So this is really helpful. The next is export. Export is also one of the important aspect of a big data application, because whenever you are dealing with data, sometimes it happens you wanted to export and send it to somebody over the email, you want to send some reports to them, and in most of the application what happens is one of the output from this application could be used as an input to another application. So that could be different kind of formats which customer might need, or they could be standard formats which is required. So that's why I put like a snapshot for sending your, if there is anomalous behavior happening, a snapshot and send it to your network engineer. Depending on the use case, you might have to think how do you export them. Next is dashboard sharing. So dashboard sharing is like whatever you see on it visually, you want to quickly share that dashboard, you want to email them somebody, and what happens nowadays, you want to embed that particular widget inside your own applications. A lot of people give that capability, like in YouTube URL you can put it and then you can give it to the people. Next is real-time data support. So a lot of big data applications are nearly real-time, so you wanted to make sure your framework supports the real-time applications. And then security. it looks security is just a peripheral requirement of any application, but this is the crucial part, because in a lot of customers, like we are dealing with Reliance Jio, they are one of the largest growing network in the world. So they have like minimum security requirements. Security has to be there to go to production. So you have to have a proper IAM based authentication, authorization, user management, all that stuff, and or it can connect to the different kind of IAM servers. And then your framework should have testing and monitoring support. Testing in terms of like it should have end-to-end test cases, it should have unit test cases, and it has a monitoring support. What is happening in the system, you would be able to analyze, visualize it, what is happening behind it, so that while running your application, you can see that part. Last but not the least here is documentation. It looks as a developer initially, documentation is okay if all the features are supported, but frankly speaking, if documentation is not good, end of the day you will feel really pissed off, because you will not like that software if you have to debug and find out everything. So documentation has to be well done, and so that you can easily understand features, because while using any software for the first time is quick and easy, but when you go into detail, you try to find those problems if it is not well documented. So this is one of the good criteria you need to look at. So this is a kind of selection criteria sheet I come up with. All these points are bulleted here, and I have shared this on Twitter. And another thing is like basic criteria from open sources, like license type, list of company who are using it, stars for the GitHub, how many stars it has, bug and feature commit rate, whether it is being fixed really quickly or not, or you have to wait for it. So these are the minimum thing you need to see. And then what is the future roadmap? Is it aligned to your vision or not? That's important. Some level of clarity has to be there before choosing that part. Because in big data world, if you're choosing a framework or tool, you are actually acquiring it for long term. You cannot do it for months or a year just. Evolution of big data UI at Guavas. So here I'll be talking about how we have evolved from 2008 when I joined Guavas and till date where we are heading next in terms of technology and framework. Hope it is visible, because I see that the colors are light. Okay, so back in 2008, we were using Flex. Flex at that time was not Apache. It got acquired somewhere, it got donated around 10,011, 12, something near to that. So initially when we started using Apache Flex for building big data application, it was all static dashboards. We were also learning big data. Big data was new to the market at that time. And then towards 2010, when customers were start using our application, they say we need some kind of interactive dashboard, and then the reporting starts coming. I told you like there are a couple of areas where it takes hours to generate things. Then we created them into reports, and during this time we created a UI kit on top of Flex. Is like a small thin framework which help us to start our application quickly. All the basic functionality, security, module generation, basic things were ready inside the kit with some level of components available. So development time we can reduce. So that was how we started here. And then 2012, when we were working towards a lot of other customers, then the era was more like people wanted to explore UI. They wanted to have more exploration in their hands. So we created a framework in Flex itself. We call it a watermelon. That's why this icon is there. So it was all about a configuration-based framework. You have to just define your configuration for your query, for your UI, and then it generates a proper application for you using our UI engine. So after 2012, when we moved towards 15, there was a transition happening from Flex to HTML. And we tried initially moving using hybrid application of Flex and HTML, because HTML was not supporting everything well properly on browsers, as well as Flex I cannot hybridly use properly with them. So we had a lot of problems at that time. And then we thought, let's do one thing. Let's use Angular. We started our first application using Angular.js, and we created the similar kit in HTML5. And now our application startup time is also become lesser because having this thin framework in place, and there are alerting actions, all that stuff. Whenever something happens, you want to have an alert. There's a closed loop decisioning. All that stuff start happening. People wanted to have a closed loop. Something happens, notify the user, and he'll close that part. And from 15 to 18, when we were developing this UI kit, we have moved transition our Angular JS kit to a real latest Angular version, and beyond that, now we are moving towards a world where data exploration tool for the experts is being built right now. If you've seen, most of the talks today are around here in this room. Exactly, they were talking about data exploration tools for data scientists, for product managers. So we were building these tools, and then we thought, let's explore the market, what is happening in the market, what kind of data visualization tools are there. We have looked at Kibana, Grafana, a lot of other tools, Arcadia, and then we nailed down Superset is a kind of, it was in Apache Incubator. It has a lot of good features, and it was kind of aligned to what we were thinking to build. And then we took Apache Superset, and we call it Apache Superset plus plus, because we are building some functionality on top of it. I'm talking to Superset guys because we have some really good plans where we can make a plug-and-play model for Superset, which Kibana has, but Superset doesn't have. So we are talking to them if we can build that, and we will be able to contribute to that, and it'll be really helpful for the whole community. So right now in 2018, what we have is Angular-based UI kit we have, plus we have React is basically the technology which is being used in Superset. So the combination, what is happening, all the production applications right now are being built using our UI kit based on Angular, and Superset is mainly used for data exploration right now. The real goal is to build our application using Superset. We want to enable our developers also instead of just our drag and drop based personas. And 2020 is the future. That's why it is kind of light color. I used it. So it is. So we wanted to make sure data exploration tool is available to all the people across the globe, because what is happening is now every company is talking about data, big data, big data. So everybody wanted to use some tool which can help them to quickly generate insights. So market is heading towards it, and slowly we are also moving in that direction. So after giving my experience over last 11 years on how we have evolved in different frameworks using different technologies, let's see whether we have to write custom framework or we have to use open source tool to develop, what we should be doing, because developer is always confused whenever he get and think like whether I should be using React, Angular, Vue, whether I should be using Kibana, Superset, Grafana, XYZ. There are a lot of other frameworks or tools are available. So when to use a custom framework? So when you need to actually use a custom framework, when your vision is not matching with any of the open source. If your vision is not aligned with any of the open source, then it makes sense you have to create your own, because you need some kind of thin framework. Too many customization needed every time. It means you need to do a lot of work yourself. So make a thin framework so that it'll reduce your some level of work, but customization part has to be there because it is changing for you. Long-term vision to create differentiator in the market. If you have in mind, like you want to create some impact in the market, to create some different thing, then obviously this is the way to go. Could be a potential candidate for the new open source because you are already thinking to have a differentiator, then you wanted to create it. So benefits would be like better control, future-proof, value in the market. So when to use open source tool? That was like when to use the custom one. Now is like when to use the open source tool. What should be the driving factor behind it? So most of the needed features available in open source, if you look at it, like we have chosen Superset, and because we found a lot of the features which we need to create ourselves are readily available there, why not to use it? Has extensible architecture for your vision, because there is a crucial part. You have to look at where you want to take this tool to, then accordingly you will see whether the architectural vision is available. That's how the documentation part is very key while doing it, because otherwise you will find very difficult yourself to debug and understand the whole system. If the documentation is good, you'll try to understand it well. Connect to multiple data sources. As I mentioned there, like this is one of the crucial part when we choose a tool, because in big data you have to make sure it connects to all the different data sources. If not to all, at least to the most of, and you can write your own plugins. Like for in case of Superset, when we're choosing it, we have done a small POC on Elastic connector, and we are successfully able to connect to the Elastic, and then we thought this is the right way to move because it already supports a lot of data sources. And then if it was not supporting Elastic, we wrote a connector. And similarly, we can add connector for other things. And then easy to theme and customize. This is also one of the key factors whenever you're choosing frameworks. Whenever you are developing actually multiple customer, you might have to use different themes. They wanted to customize themselves. tool is actively enhanced and fixed in market. This is the key factor while choosing it, because if it is not fixed, and because you cannot own everything, you have to have, if you're going in open source, there have to be community behind it which is actually doing it. Benefits are like time to market, lots of hand to develop it. In our case, when we started Superset, day one is like within a week it was available in our customer premises, and verse if we have to develop our own framework, would have taken at least a month or so to get into the production. Then how to choose a custom framework? What should be criteria? Because developer is confused whether I should be using Ember, jQuery, React, Vue, and there are plethora of Polymer, or should I write own my JS framework? So developers have a lot of common questions on that. Like if you search on Google, it will say, okay, these are the top 3 frameworks available in the market. Still you have question like, which is better for my project, which offer me the best performance, which is good for small size, big size application, which of 3 is the most reliable one, which offer me the maximum flexibility, which factors to consider while choosing your frameworks. So if you drill down to a custom itself, you still have a lot of questions in your mind. So I have compared all these 3 and you'll find a lot of these on internet, what are the comparisons they have, but I'll try to focus on the major part of it, which are like major bulleted. One is like easy to learn, which is most easy to learn. Like in case of Angular, it is like you need to learn TypeScript language. For the guys who are new to UI, they'll find it slightly difficult to learn it. And React is medium, Vue is easy. So these are the factors which you'll be considering while choosing any framework. Obviously, this is not the one. Then another one, backed by who is backing, which company is actually backing up, used by which company. Like Angular is used by Google, Wix, PayPal, HBO, Sony, GM. Similarly, React is used by Facebook, Uber, Airbnb, Netflix, Instagram, Twitter. You'll have that credibility in your mind, like, hey, this is the right framework I should be using. And then Vue is the new framework done by one of the ex-Googler, and it is used by Xiaomi, Alibaba, GitLab, Laracast. What are the production file size? What are the development size? All these, like these are the factors which sometimes matters to you. And then which data binding is it, bidirectional, unidirectional? What is the impact it has? And then NPM weekly download, it tells like which framework is getting more popularity in that terms, and which model, MVC, virtual DOM, because virtual DOM is a very optimized way to render the DOM. And startup time, which takes more startup time, like Angular has a longer because it is a big framework, and React is quick, Vue is quick. So complete web apps can be used. Angular can be used to create whole complete app itself because it is standalone. It has everything in it. And React need to be integrated with multiple tools because it is not a framework; it's a library. And Vue is like require third-party tools. We have not used Vue much, but these are the like kind of the most trending framework in the market. And then when to use production. Angular is used in a lot of production grade application, and it is meant for enterprise level bigger applications. And React is production ready, obviously, and custom apps. It is used a lot of custom apps, smaller apps are being used. And Vue.js is currently used in startups and some production apps. GitHub Star, if you look at it, 53K for Angular, it looks like it's still a production grade enterprise level application. Still, if you look at it, the number of stars for Vue is more, React is lesser. Once you look at the trend in the next slide, you'll get to know how each one is getting the traction in the market. So when you go over what is the summary behind these slides, is more like Angular is a complete framework which any modern developer needs. So it has everything end to end. But in case of React, is just a library. It's not a framework. You need different kind of tools and libraries to be used alongside with it. Gives you flexibility, but sometimes developers who are new will get into this problem. Which one should I pick? So that is the kind of problem there. So you need to accordingly choose it. And then Vue is a combination of React and Angular. The guy has actually studied both the frameworks and then actually wrote it, and that's why it is getting a lot of traction. Okay, interest over the last 5 years. If you look at it, how the interest of the developers over the last 5 years is. So if you look at the red line, this is the Angular. It is going like initially it was on the top, and when you note my timeline in evolution of big data guavas, and was showing like Angular was picking up around post 2016. It's starting React is starting taking over this part, and now React is going ahead in market, and Angular is still stabilized and is still used for a lot of production grade applications. So if you see this trend, this is from Google, I have picked up. If you look at it, this is how we also evolved ourselves. It's not like this is the graph made by me. It's like from Google, you can find out, you can get this report, and it actually matches how we evolved it, because we are now moving towards React. We are still using Angular, but mostly we are moving towards React to create a tool. And on top of that tool, we want to make sure even developers can develop using plugin system. So let me show you a quick demo of Network Load Advisor. It is built using one of our this UI toolkit. The problem was telecom customers were facing these problems. They didn't have a lot of call drops. They were having bad browsing experience. So this is what kind of use cases we were solving. And then we come out with this small product, Network Load Advisor, which was actually showing the network engineers what is happening in the network right now immediately on the system. So let me quickly show you the demo here. So currently what is happening is, in particularly New York downtown, the network engineer is currently looking at what is happening on different e-nodes, and particularly near to the Brooklyn Bridge, there is a e-node B which is totally red because there is some problem there, fully congested. I don't know whether you're able to read it well because of the resolution. So engineer will go here, he'll click on it, he'll see how many IoT devices are connected, how many users are using it, what kind of application they are watching. He'll go inside it, he'll say, okay, on this cell ID, these guys were connected, and there are few parameters like bandwidth, packet loss, congestion, 99% application area is being congested, that cell is congested. And these are the 3 guys who are actually doing tethering and blocking the whole system. So he'll say, I'll enforce a policy on them. I'll put throttle heavy tetherers, and when you apply this policy, then it quickly reduce the congestion to 75%. So similarly, this was like an operator is doing it, and later on what we did is, this is a closed loop decision where machine itself can see, okay, this is there, now let me make these guys throttle. So this is how we kind of solved a lot of use cases regarding these things. So this is the application which we quickly developed using this our UI kit. So let me quickly show you our UI kit also, if I'll able to access. I don't know how visible is this because of the resolution, I think. So this is a kit we have developed using Angular. So it offers like, it gives you authentication, authorization, it gives you switcher, it gives you top navigation bar. So it gives you multiple modules, 2 configurations, it gives you offline data factory, error handling, unit testing, Docker build. So we have created a kind of starter app for our application, our developers, which can be used and they can quickly develop these applications. These are the couple of applications which are built using this kit. And on the long term, we are thinking, why don't we contribute this to open source? Currently, it's in-house because we are mostly earlier we were not using a lot of contribution to open source. When we started working with Superset, we realized this is the way we should be going. We should be contributing, because when you contribute, people will start using it. They will also fix it back, whatever you have, and they will give a new vision to it. So let me go back. How to choose open source tool. We talked about how to choose a custom framework. Now the thing is how to choose the open source tool. There are a lot of tools in market. We initially looked at Kibana, Superset, Grafana, and then we decided first thing is how to choose it. Define a target persona. Who are the user who want to use it? What are the use cases? If it is drag drop based, do you need to code it? Because usually business analysts, project managers, they wanted to have some kind of just drag drop based UI. And then your vision should match with the open source. That's important. We already talked about it. And then pros and cons is more like quick time to market, easy to use, consistent look and feel. In our case, we were able to deploy it quickly, start using it. It has, obviously for look and feel, we have to work initially, but once it is there, then it's like available to all our products. Cons are like new feature addition takes longer because in open source, nothing is in your hand always, because you need to go through a proper commit cycle. Even for the design PRs, you need to put it. So it takes time. Architecture learning, there's steep learning curve in architecture because it is not your own defined. So you have to make sure you learn the architecture well so that you'll be able to contribute it better. Then upgrade problems. If you customize it, it's not really extendable. Like if you have your own fork, and later on, if you want to do something, then merging itself is a problem. You want to upgrade is a problem. A lot of tools are available in market from open source to paid, like Kibana. Then there is a Kibi, which is a paid tool of written on top of Kibana. Superset, Grafana, Google Data Platform, Power BI, Tableau, Amazon Quick Insight. There are a lot of tools available from paid to open source. So then when we were working on one of the network security project, we realized like Kibana, we started using it. It has a lot of search use cases. Then we realized we should be looking at Kibana, and Kibana is an open source tool for visualizing, exploring, and managing, monitoring the entire ELK. It has aggregation, filter, search. It supports variety of charts, time series, map, etc. Pros and cons, if I talk about it quickly, plugin based model for Kibana is very good. You can install whatever you want quickly. You can uninstall it. Very good for elastic and search use cases. Good variety of graphs and visuals. Create quick dashboard. Cons are like not able to connect to multiple data sources natively. That was the big problem. We kind of left Kibana because of that. Heavily dependent on elastic. Angular JS based code was there. It was migrating to React. So developers were kind of like they were wanted to work on the latest one. And then we finally found like Apache Superset. It was in incubation, and it was matching a lot of our requirements. So enterprise ready business web application, which gives you drag drop based interface to quickly build dashboards. So it has rich set of visualization, like 50 plus visualization. It already supports. It has chart, geo, spatial visualization, time series, elastic level, enterprise level role-based access control. It already supports it. It connects to all the different databases, OpenID, LDAP, or auth. It's a cloud native from day one itself. You can, because nowadays everybody is moving towards cloud. This is cloud native. Support multiple data sources. We talked a lot about it. This was one of the key deciding factor for us to move into this direction. And then SQL Lab, remember we talked about you need to have some kind of SQL query mechanism in your tool. So this already offers you SQL Lab where you can write your own queries and then visualize them. Part of HDP 3.0, it is being accepted in HDP. So it is a great way to see like it is being accepted in the market, growing in community and penetration. If you look at, these are the Apache incubator stats, how many commits are there, how many contributors. You can go through all these details. So I'll skip through this because we have short of time. So if time permits, we'll come back to this. We have created more anomalous devices in the network. We were trying to find anomalous devices across a particular area. I want to visualize using superset. Why to use and contribute to open source? Why you should be doing that? First is time to market, because you are ready with the day one itself. Within few days, you are ready to go to your customer. If you are writing your own, obviously you will be taking time. Then improve the code quality, because everybody is working in community towards making a betterment for this code. So it will be really helpful if you take it. And then reduce the cost. Obviously, dollars will reduce because a lot of people are already building those features. You are adding some part of it. And then gain competitive advantage, because everybody is working toward the betterment of that tool, as well as if you're contributing, you are also working with those people and you become sharpen yourself. Then to make software more usable, because everybody is working toward a single goal to make that application more stable and usable, so it becomes automatically more usable. Excel your career, because you're working in open source community, and you are known to people, you showcase your work in community, you automatically excel your career because people will reach out to you. Then is you support open source value, that's why you do it. Promote industry standard, because you're promoting industry standard if you are looking at that. And the final thing is like give back. I wanted to give back to community because I have used these things, I want to give back to the community also. Design UI for future. What should be our thinking towards designing the feature of the UI? So pluggable architecture, bringing new item in the system. You need to think whenever you creating a framework or tool or choosing it, you need to look at it like plugin system should be there. Like Kibana has very good plugin system. I was talking to Max on superset, like whether we can build that particular feature in superset itself, where I can able to plug and play different visualizations, could add my own custom modules. So that'll be really helpful and it can go to the next level. Then configurable and low footprint, it should be low footprint because now people are going towards light devices, edge devices, so it has to be there. And responsive UI, obviously this is the key factor whenever you're doing something because it has to be go on laptop, tablet, mobiles. And then multi-modal UI. So this is basically, because now your interaction mode is not just the user interface, it's like a voice also you're doing. So now the world is moving toward a different direction where you're interacting with machines using your voice, your hand touch, all that stuff. So you need to think in that direction also from development perspective. Next is spatial interfaces, virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality. So these are the things which is right now not available in the actual human being, not available to the real market. It is still in development and R&D. So this is the next wave which is coming up. Last year I attended one of the Facebook conference there. They were showing it a properly virtual based application where I'm kind of talking to all my friends in a party in a virtual environment. So that kind of thing is picking up very fast. And next the wearable like iWatch. So this is the new thing which already most of the guys are using already wearables, and this is the next market where we are heading. Thank you. This is my Twitter handle, and please contact me for any UI UX problem, big data analytics. I would love to answer that.
Okay. Any questions? Right.
Sorry, I didn't understand the difference. It was at the beginning of your presentation between reports and offline data.
Okay, so reports are basically what happens is whenever you're building big data application, there are certain areas which extract data in hours. You're running a query, it takes like 6 hours, 10 hours to get the data. So user cannot wait on the interface itself. So what you need to do is you need to convert those use cases into the reporting. You should have to use some kind of reporting tool where you either generate them automatically or user will configure them when I should need it, like weekly, monthly, daily, and then you'll get an email, or from interface you can go there and download that report. There are multiple ways. That is one of the key aspects has to be used in reporting. And for talking about the offline data is more like while doing an UI development, what happens is backend is not available immediately. UI developers can do quickly, but backend takes longer time. So what they do is they usually define an interface between front end and backend, which is the API contract. And what they do, they kind of do a simulation of JSON objects or CSVs they can put it. And then in UI, they use that offline data to create their UI. Because if you look at the load advisor, it was all through the offline data factory. I was just mimicked all the responses there. And later on, once the API is available, I switch on my flag application, now move to the online mode, and it directly connects to the server and get the same data because the contract is finalized. So development can go faster. That's the intent.
And another question regarding in your experience, because you mentioned very quickly the proprietary tools, and from my experience, people always want, because I've been using well, Excel, of course, but also Power BI or Tableau or MicroStrategy for years. In your experience, how many? Well, are you more confronted with the proprietary tools, or are you often asked to develop specific UIs?
So depending on the need, because we are moving towards where we don't want to develop too many things. We want to have a tool which can create UIs for us faster. And trend is moving towards that, because next wave is where we want, like, anybody can create big data application, not just the experts. So that is the world where we are moving, and our applications are being moved. Did I answer, or?
my question was not very clear.
Okay, so you can repeat the question.
No, but no, never mind. But I have another question that's more interesting to me. You didn't speak at all about pagination, which
So that is
obviously when you
pagination is
manipulate-
basically depending on the components, because it's more like whenever using a component, they have like AG grid we use a lot. AG grid has the built-in pagination, and you can have a virtual scroll, or you can. So depending on your need, so that is the basic thing we have in our components these days.
Okay, because it's available everywhere.
It's available because earlier it was the kind of thing which was missing. Now people have developed it for. So everywhere it's available.
Okay, so
Any other questions?
I have one more question for you. It's not very clear to me how you deal with the raw data, because in big data normally you have raw data stored in HDFS or so. So how do you deal with that before you come to the visualization part?
Okay, so in our case, what we have our own platform where we have a Spark job running and putting the data into Hive, and then for custom UIs we have a REST API layer, UI backend, which fetch this data, and there is a contract between UI frontend which actually populates the data. But in next case where we are using superset, we are directly reading from Hive. That was the intent, to go towards a tool where it can directly connect to Hive. There's no UI backend in between, but I think is you cannot do everything there right now because it offers you a few features, but not everything. That's why there's a custom framework which is needed for some enterprise applications.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very
All right,
much.
thanks very much.